is the ABC News entertainment editor, also a huge Mets fan, and for some reason, I think his father owns the Cowboys or something like that. He's got some connection to the Cowboys.
Really?
So that's why he's a Cowboys fan and a Mets fan. So goes to show you how crazy it is to be a Mets fan. David Blaustein is going to talk about the new movie Pan that opens up nationwide today. Good morning, David Blaustein.
Good morning. How are you?
We're great. Are you going to get your nap in so you can watch the Mets-Dodgers tonight?
I have to be honest with you. I do not envision myself being able to stay awake to watch the whole thing.
Yeah, we've been critical of Major League Baseball. No game should start at 9:45.
No, not a playoff game.
Okay, so we're all in agreement.
That was really dumb. That just I think it just shows Major League Baseball's disdain for the Wilpons.
Yeah. All right.
And the Mets fan. They don't like us.
Fair. Yes, no question about it. There is a conspiracy.
And I don't blame them. We're an annoying lot.
Yeah, yes, you are.
They probably, Major League Baseball headquartered in New York City. The executives probably taking the subway with Mets fans and see it, and we probably make them sick.
Wait till game one.
How can we torture them?
Wait till game one of Mets Cardinals. That should be the next round.
That would be great if that happens. I'm a Mets fan, so
yes.
I'm obviously not optimistic.
All right. All right, let's get to it. Pan opens up today, which is the prequel to Sandy Duncan. Is that right?
The prequel to Sandy Duncan. Yeah, sort of.
Okay.
I guess so. It's the backstory of Peter Pan. It's the backstory nobody asked for, but we got one anyway. And the hope here is that this will become a franchise. Will it work out? The movie's not tracking well, and what's worse is that it's just not going to get good word of mouth because it's not a particularly good movie. It will resonate with some people who aren't discerning about story structure and things that make sense, because a lot of things in this movie don't make sense, and the story structure is not particularly good, which is disappointing because it's from director Joe Wright, who I actually love. I think he's done some great work. I'm a huge fan of the movie Hannah, which he did, which came out a few years ago. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. And I'll give you an example of how this movie doesn't work. All right, it takes place in World War II England, and Peter is an orphan, and his orphanage every night is raided by pirates in a flying ship that steal the orphans and bring them back to Neverland. So when Peter gets stolen and is brought back to Neverland, as he arrives, we have the Lost Boys, and there are thousands of Lost Boys down under the floating ship. They're in these mines trying to find pixie. They're mining for pixie dust, literally. And there's a low hum, and they're clearly singing a song. And as the song gets louder, you recognize it to be "Smells Like Teen Spirit" by Nirvana. Which obviously is completely incongruous. Now, then Hugh Jackman comes out as Blackbeard, and he's singing it with them, and it's a striking visual and interesting, but on the surface makes no sense. And I think about it, and what I didn't tell you is that when the flying ship steals the orphans, they go through some sort of space-time continuum, and Neverland is clearly in another dimension. So I'm very time travel oriented, so I'm thinking in my mind, all right, you know what? This kind of it can make sense because they're clearly in a place where time is not a linear thing. So I guess that's all right. But what happened is I was talking to some critics afterwards, and they're like, "Oh, that's so dumb. It makes no sense. It takes place in the 1940s. How could there be Nirvana?" And I said, "Look, they're in another dimension, so their time doesn't matter." And they're like, "That's a good point." But, the point is most people aren't going to think that way, and they're not going to realize that, and it's just going to seem completely incongruous, make no sense. And then there's the other thing. It suddenly seems like Moulin Rouge and Baz Luhrmann. It seems like a Baz Luhrmann movie. By the way, a few minutes later, they're all singing Blitzkrieg Bop by the Ramones, which is also weird as well. But the problem is inconsistency, because you never get something like that again. There's never another song or pop song or any sort of popular song that anybody's singing to punctuate any sort of point. You could say, well, Nirvana and Smells Like Teen Spirit, these are disaffected, disenfranchised youth, the Lost Boys. So, in a sense, that would make sense, but it really doesn't. So the bottom line is I feel like Joe Wright and the guy who wrote this, They had like a bunch of whims that they thought were creative in the spirit of which Peter Pan was created, but it doesn't work in the long run. Like I said, some of it's aesthetically pleasing and some of it's entertaining, and they certainly cast the movie right, and the actors are true to whatever is written on the page, but what's written on the page isn't that good. So 2.5 out of 5 stars.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is David Blaustein, who is ABC News entertainment correspondent, editor, and all-around great guy. David, have yourself a good weekend. Good luck, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
825, Big 550, KTRS.